What are some of the near-death experience you faced? I burned in a gas explosion in August 2014. When I woke up 4 months later in hospital, I knew without anyone telling me that I crossed the boundary between life and death. The doc later confirmed that they did in fact lose me during one of the operations. But I resurfaced. I have recovered almost completely. Against all odds. But I can no longer smell or taste much. And my eyesight and hearing are not great anymore. And I can no longer be in the sun. I still wonder about my experience when I died. Username checks out. I kinda regret it. Because I meant it as I woke up and now I'm alive again. But then I came across the woke trope and it's so cringe. Now I'll have to live with it. I suppose. Woo. That's crazy. I'm glad you are okay now. I was diagnosed with a rare cancer that was connected to my lung and chest. When they did surgery to remove it, I flatlined twice on the operation table and again after the procedure was done. But to me it felt like I was in a dream. I was talking to someone about my life and what he said to me was, "I know you're tired but it's time to go back." When I woke up it was a few days later and I found out I was put in a medicine-induced coma to keep me from flatlining again. To this day, that man and our conversation still creeps me out. Who do you think it was? Your mind? A family member? God? How did the man look like? I did something extremely stupid. I took Ambien at the time. This was years ago. For some reason after I took it one night I decided to get out a bottle of vodka and started drinking. The next morning my husband found me sitting up on the couch. I had vomited all over myself. Had I been lying down, I'm pretty sure I would have choked on my vomit and died. Freaked my husband out. I quit taking Ambien after that. Once when some nutter tried to run me and my friends down in their car. They mounted the curb and everything. 100% intent on trying to hit us. Years later a similar incident in the same location happened resulting in the death of 3 young men. Whether it was the same perpetrator or not I don't know. Felt sad for the lads and their families. As well as extremely fortunate as it could have easily been me. I was walking in the yard with my dad when I was like 10 years old. It was raining like HL but we had to get something from the shed. I don't remember what. Lightning struck the grass maybe 5 meters in front of us. Safe to say I don't like lightning anymore. I've never had any close experience with lightning but I can tell it's deafening and scary as HL. Happy Cake Day 2. When I was 14 I rode a bike down a very steep stair and woke up in the hospital a few hours later. Was there for a month. Got a basilar skull fracture. Intracranial hemorrhage and lost my sense of smell forever. That really sucks. What is a basilar skull fracture? A break of a bone in the base of the skull. Remember the giant snake from Harry Potter? Yay, he fractured its skull. One time my family and I were at Arches National Park in Utah. There was a cliff on the side of the trail and I looked over the side and wobbled a bit and almost fell. I was very close to falling off. A couple of years ago I was hiking on a very rainy day. Yes, that was not an intelligent move. Another one to come. The route we choose was quite old and apparently the markings were renewed and the route was changed a bit. However, we unfortunately followed the old route that landed us nowhere after an hour or so. We didn't want to go back up. So we proceeded with no markings. Trying to get back on track anyway. This part of the hike was in a forest by the way. It was raining massively and suddenly I slipped. I slipped further. Down the mountain. Over some trees and stones and stuff. Hurt quite a bit. At one point I managed to grab a tree and came to stop. It was only when I stopped that I realized that if I had slipped just a little further, I had fallen down a huge cliff of the mountain. I was scared till death and completely in shock. Needless to say, I never hiked again in rainy weather nor walked routes without markings. Stupid decisions fortunately lead to getting smarter. I remember this clear as day because that was the day me and my friend almost died. Studying in a different region in the Philippines can be tough mainly because of the language barrier. I come from Manila and Tagalog was our main language. I studied in Davao and Tagalog was not their main language and it bugged me because I had no idea what anybody is saying. We decided to eat at this night market and as soon as we entered the market, I felt sick to my stomach and a chill breeze. I said to my friend that something's wrong and I can't explain what but we have to leave. He did not listen so we continued along. There was this small massage area to our right and the moment I looked at that area, people were starting to get uneasy and some were shouting. Now I did not understand what they were saying so I was confused. I told my friend can you translate and blankly looked at me and said, Bomba takbo na tayo. Bomb we have to run. Right then and there a bomb exploded. Abad then? I almost drowned twice. Not super fun. Not much to say other than river plus me plus not able to keep head above water consistently equals a bit traumatic. The second time was as an adult river rafting. I fell out in a dangerous stretch of river. Couldn't seem to get any progress away from the rapids. I had resigned that I was likely going to die before the main boat caught up to me and got a paddle for me to grab on. I hadn't properly adjusted my life jacket so every time I got up for air my head was floating a few inches lower than it should have and my gasps were met with the top of a wave. Anyways I get back to the raft. Humbled the river and frankly terrified to get back in. We got to a big slow-moving stretch and the boat captain said, I'm not going to pressure you to get back in. But if you don't do it now you will probably be too scared to swim for the rest of your life and so against my better judgment I hopped back in. I still swim on occasion but if even the slightest drop of water gets in my snorkel while snorkeling it's pretty much an instant anxiety attack. Honestly that's a smart captain. I feel you. Went scuba diving in Thailand. Got decompression sickness and experienced the worst months of my life afterwards. Happened last year in February. Whenever I go in the water somewhere and my chest is covered in water, I get really uncomfortable and after a couple of minutes I have problems breathing even if I just sit in a hot tub where nothing can happen. Was putting new plastic on a greenhouse on a cool foggy morning with no wind. FG primo skinning conditions. The sun broke through suddenly and there was a huge thermal from the concrete and the 160 feet of plastic shot up into the sky. I was on a huge extension ladder pulling the plastic with a rope tied to the plastic to get it down the length of the greenhouse. Anyways yeah. Thermal hits the plastic. Plastic shoots up into the air fast. And I was tangled up in the long rope on top of the ladder. There was enough initial lift to take me and the ladder about 30 feet into the air where I landed on top of an old outhouse next to the river. Now imagine landing in the river. Then 160 feet of plastic land on top of that. I got one helluva steak dinner that night from the owner of the greenhouse as compensation lol. Oh. Not as extreme as others but my step-sister and I were walking down this street and we were eating sweets and talking. Out of nowhere I stopped breathing. I tried signaling to her that I couldn't breathe and she helped me and after 10 seconds I started breathing again. You left something out? Age 6 I was playing with other kids on the sandy bank near a river. Suddenly, my friend's 3-year-old brother waded in and started getting swept away in the current. Our parents were all standing around talking too far away to reach him quickly. As were most kids. So they screamed at me to get him. I did. But we soon got swept into where it was over my head and he started dragging me under. Just in time. A 10-year-old waded in and got both of us to shore safely. Stupid parents. TLDR. Saved a kid's life. Then both of us had to get saved by another kid. Fox attack. I jumped off the roof and nearly hit my head on the edge of the pool. That must have been scary. Saw some crazy videos and my heart nearly skipped a beat. Happy Cake Day. Also. Yeah, it was really scary, still have nightmares about it. Thank you. It's my first. I had one just yesterday. For context, I work at a car dealership. I had just picked up a car from a local auction house and was doing about 80 in a 75 down the highway. As I was going over a bridge in the lane closest to the edge of the bridge, a huge and also dead, dried-up Christmas tree flies out of this truck ahead of me. I obviously swerve very quickly into the shoulder and one of my back tires is in the air with the whole car about to flip. I somehow managed to reel it back in and gain control of the car again. If I had lost it and the car had flipped like it almost did, I would have gone over the edge of that bridge, and I don't want to think about what would have happened to me. Hope you're safe and not injured from that scary incident. Thankfully I was okay. I had to pull over and sit for a bit afterwards. I was shaking for a good while, haha. Not me, but my dad once was driving and flipped his car. He's fine, but that's definitely a near-death experience. Ex and I were chilling in the lounge at her parents' house in winter and had the gas heater on. Both fell asleep, and when the movie ended she said we must go to bed, and I wanted to just sleep down there with her. Weren't allowed to sleep in the same bed, you see, so I thought I could get away with the couch. And she said we can't and pushed me upstairs. I woke up the next morning to the house smelling like gas cause we had closed the lounge door without turning the heater off, and it had burnt off all the oxygen and gone out, so filled the room with propane. Would have never woken up if she hadn't told me to go to bed. That is so lucky of you, for real. It was September 2019 and I was feeling anxious. Keep in mind I had been self-harming all year. I went to self-harm again that night and I cut too deep. Had to call the ambulance. Now my arm is FD up. I've had suicide attempts. But, curiously enough, the time I wasn't trying to kill myself was when I came closer to it. That was a scary ride. I hope you're doing fine now. Are you okay? Better THNKS. I fell through the ice chasing my dog across a smallish but very fast river as a child. I was about 6 to 7 years old. There were ice bridges built up over the flowing water and a good layer of snow on them. Dog ran across. Sister ran after him. I followed her. For me, the ice caved in and I dropped through the hole. I remember water up above my waist and nothing to grab. My sister, who was no more than 8 to 9 years old, holding my coat neck. My dad, who was close to 300 pounds and 6 feet 5 inches, smashed into the river and grabbed us. If he hadn't been there, I'm sure it would have been only moments before I was pulled under the ice and wouldn't have been visible from the bank. Went on a natural rock climbing activity for school camp. I tripped while on the cliff and almost fell down 20 meters down into the Australian bush. Oh, I did this on a school camp in Australia too. Had a storm that came through with some wicked winds and caused a total blackout in my plant. After about 39 minutes I got up and went instigating. Wound up having to walk across some rail cars. What I didn't notice is that a portion of the roof and the building came off. Fell on time of some power lines and managed to become suspended mid-air, though slicing half of the lines, which were dangling just low enough to be slapping the line of rail cars I was standing on. I noticed it only a split second before it was too late. Threw sparks every time it made contact. When I was a kid, I almost fell off a tree. I was quite high and would have fell head first to the lower branches if I hadn't got stuck from my ankle to a crotch. I was nearly hit by a car a couple of times. I had a similar experience but with a friend. We were on the way to the mosque and a truck just turned the corner at full speed and almost hit my friend, and I pulled him so fast back. I could have sworn that could have been our final conversation. Happy cake day, sir. Thanks. I once let my mom count to 0. Best comment, ha ha ha. Happy cake day. For real though. I was once on a boat with my dad and we got into a huge storm. Literally 6 meters waves. I legitimately thought to myself, yup. That's it. I'm dead, but somehow we made it to shore. My parents and I faced this. They were driving me to school. We reached a stop sign at one of the streets that go through a highway. My parents and I were talking about something and we didn't realize the light had been green for maybe a few seconds. Just before my dad went on drive, a huge container truck lost control and was swirling on the highway right in front of us until it fell on its side and hit a motorcycle rider. My parents and I were in so much shock that my dad was still pressing harder on the brake pedal. The truck driver and the motorcycle rider died in the middle of that busy highway. I honestly couldn't move like when we got to my school. My legs were shaking so hard. All three of us could have gone, and it really changed our perspective on our situation. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.